Good evening, one and all. So let us begin with another few programming examples related to object-oriented programming, in which we will see about the different access specifiers. Access specifiers or access modifiers are the ones which will restrict the entities in your program. For example, where all you can use that variable or where all that method is accessible, that you can restrict, or you may make it visible or you may hide it using the access specifiers in your program. So let us see examples, then it will be clear to you. This program. So you can see here we have an ID which is private, and we have a string which is again private. String is name string. Okay, so here what we are going to do is, if they are private, okay, as you can see, these variables or the data members or the fields, they are private, so you cannot access them outside my employee class. You can access these variables only from inside this my employee class. That means, for example, here, if you are trying to print name or return name or something like that, which is private, you're trying to do that, you are trying to access the name inside this get name function. This function or method is a part of the same class. It is within the class. So here you can access name, here you can access ID. Okay, but if you want to do the accessing of the name and ID from outside the my employee class, that is, you want to access the name and ID, suppose from another class, for example, over here. Okay, so here I cannot access the name and ID directly. First of all, I have to create an object of the class. Okay, I have to create object of the class. So I've created it, but you can see with this object, I'm trying to access ID and name. I'm trying to update the values, means I'm trying to access ID and name outside the class, but it is highlighting an error that name has private access in the my employee class, that it is telling me. Okay, so it indicates that using object also, you cannot access name and ID from outside the class if name and ID is private. Okay, now ID is private, name is private. Suppose I make ID as public. Okay, and then if I show you, see ID, the error has gone. No error for ID because it is now public, whereas name is still private. That is why error for name. Okay, so what private indicates, whatever is the variable or method, it can be accessed only inside the class, but public, it can be accessed throughout the program. Okay, so this was an example for public and private. Now, if we cannot access the private data members directly, then can you all suggest me, if you all know, how I can access the private details outside the class? Any idea, any suggestion from your side? Any guesses? Okay, let me give you one small hint. See, name and ID is private. Okay, I'll make ID also private only. Name and ID is private, but here these functions are public. So using the function, can I access the private details outside the class? Means what I'll do, I will call the function from outside the class, and in that function, I'm going to print the private details. For example, if I use a set name function, in this set name, I'm accessing this name. Okay, for now, let me show you this function. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, see, in this function void set name, what I'm doing, this name which is private, I can access inside this function which is in the same class. Okay, and to this name, I'm going to assign something. What I'm assigning? A parameter's value. This parameter I will pass over here. Right? So what I'm doing, if I want to access private data from outside my class, then maybe in some other class, I will create an object of the class, my employee, I'll create its object. And then using that object, I will call a function which has been defined inside my employee class. Okay. And so if I call that function, I'm also passing a parameter, Nitish. So here that parameter will come, that is n is equal to Nitesh, and that n I'm going to store, the value of n I'm going to store inside name. And name is what? Name is this private name. So indirectly I have accessed the name of my employee from outside my employee. Similarly, if I want to print the name, then I can simply type here name is name. Okay, just like how I stored some value inside my private data, I can display that private data also using this. Is it clear till here?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as you can see, what change I did, the method was public till now. I made it private, right? So you cannot access private data from outside your class. It may be a private member. Private member means it may be private data or it may be private method. Here, this is again, I've made it as a private method. So you can see I'm getting an error over here. Okay, because it is private. You cannot access the function from outside the class, even if you're using object name. Okay, but this private method set name can be accessed in some other public method. For example, this is another method. If I don't write anything means it is default over here, and default means throughout the package it is accessible. So for your convenience, let me write public. Okay, so check is a public method. Okay, so just like how I accessed my private data using a public method over here. If set name is public, then what I was doing, this private name I was accessing inside this public method. It is also possible to access one method from another method. So the set name function I can access over here also inside my check function. Okay, so yeah, so I've already written it. Okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm accessing set name from another function of the same class. Okay, and here it is public. That is why no, if even if it is private, I can access the set name inside my another function because these functions are defined within the same class. That means the data may be private or public, doesn't matter. Within the same class, anywhere you can access it. Okay, it may be a private data or it may be private method. It can be accessed anywhere inside the class anyhow, but outside the class only if it is public you can access. Is this much clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So instead of okay, so instead of uh, okay, same thing you can try out with ID also. You can call set ID which is public and it will set the ID which is private. ID is private. You're going to access it from a public method. You can do that. Now, what if method was private as I said? That means here I have my set name which is private. Just a minute. Okay, now set name is private. So answer my question. I've already told you. Can I access this from outside my class? Can I access set name from outside the class?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes. The answer is no, because it is private, right? You cannot access something which is private from outside the class. So what I said, you have to call this private method inside some other function which is public. See the set name, I have called it over here inside another method of the same class, and this method is public. And public method, can I access it from outside my class? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So how the program will flow? If here I am going to call my check method, which is public. Okay, so I've created an object of my class, of my employee class. I've created an object. Using that object, I'm calling the check function. When I call the check function, here it will match the definition. This is also check, and this is also check. That is how it matches which function it has to call. Okay, and then it will execute the statements of the check function. What are the statements? Another function call. Set name is being called. So set name means this one is being called. And I'm passing a string on checking here. So that string will get stored in n because n is also a string. And this n I'm going to store in name, which is private. Name is private. So indirectly, name will be equal to what now? What will be the value of name variable? Can you tell me? What is the value of n? Can you tell me? I'm passing something, right? On checking. On checking is being passed to n. So what is the value of n? Can you tell me?
On checking.
On checking.
Yes. And now what is the value of name? Can you tell me?
On checking.
Yes, exactly. So one place to other place, the value is getting passed. And finally, the private data has been initialized to on checking. So now if you try to call the check function, it will first of all execute this much so that on checking will come here. And then name is equal to on checking. And then it will print name is on checking. So the output of calling this check function is nothing but on checking will get displayed. So let us run this program. I need to run this program. So see, output is name is on checking. Okay. Is this much clear how public and private affect the um, limitations and scope of your variables? Is it clear?
Yes, clear.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Next we will see. And by the way, if you click on any file over here, Java file, as you can see, constructor.java is a file. If I click on that, you can see some more things inside over here. Inside that constructor.java, it is nothing but the different classes which are inside the constructor.java file. For example, if I open this constructors.java file over here, you can see there is one class over here, my main employee, and there's another class, this one, JT3 constructors. So whichever classes are there inside your file, that gets listed over here, okay, under this file. As you can see, JT3 constructors is one class and my main employee is another class. So all the classes within the file get listed over here. So if you want, you can click on any particular class and it will take you over there inside the file. Okay, so you may be thinking, what is this? So I told you. Okay, so now let us go to constructors. Can anyone tell me, like, if you all know what are constructors, can anyone tell me what are constructors? Have you all come across this?
Yes.
So what are constructors? Whatever you know, you can tell me.
Its name is same as class name,
Okay, what else?
and it is being invoked automatically.
Okay, what else? Does it have a return type?
No.
Okay. Can there be more than one constructor for the same class?
No.
Yes, you can have. Okay, that is also possible. Okay, you can have more than one constructor for the same class. Okay, in C++ also, in Java also.
Different constructors it could be.
Sorry, what are you saying?
Means types of constructor would be there.
Yeah, there are types of constructors. Yeah, means you can have more than one different types of constructors. Means one can be a simple constructor, another constructor can take parameters. Okay, like that, different constructors you can have for the same class.
Yeah, but there can't be two simple constructors in one
Huh,
class.
yes. So yeah, my question was that can you have more than one constructor? So you could have said that you can have different types of constructors. Yeah. So simple means without the parameters, if you have two constructors, that is not allowed. Okay. So just 1 minute, wait, hold on. I need to check something. Okay, so we were discussing about constructors. So constructor is a special member function of a class which has the same name as that of the class, and it can be used to initialize the different objects, or you can say different variables or data members of the class. And it does not have a return type, and usually we declare it under the public section. Means usually the constructors, we can say that they are the public methods. Okay, for example, you can say a class name is my main employee, and the constructor name is also my main employee, and the access specifier is public. Means the constructors usually are public. Why? Because if they are private, then you cannot call them from outside your class. Okay, so such constructors will not be of use if they are private. Usually they are public only. Then uh, even in base class and derived class, that is inheritance concepts, there also have constructors, and they are called automatically only if you create the object of the class. Okay, not that without creating object they'll be called. They will be called only if the object of the class is created. How do we create object of the class? We create object of the class by this way: class name object name equal to new class name brackets. So Nitish has is an object which you have created for my main employee class, and if you create an object, then directly the constructor is called automatically. Okay, and it is in your hand also sometimes that which constructor out of all the constructors you want to call. Okay, that depends on how you pass the parameters. Okay, so for now, let us see the two types of constructors, which is one is without parameters. As you can see, parameters means nothing you've passed in the bracket, and one is with parameters. Okay, so these were the two types of constructors. Is there one minute? Huh. Okay, so here I'm going, there's a main employee class in which there is ID and name, and they are private. Okay, your constructors, one is without, one is with parameters, they are public. In this constructor, what we are doing, for your private ID and private name, we are directly initializing. Is this possible, or will you get an error? Can you tell me? Private data you're accessing inside a method of the same class, inside the class. Is it correct, or are you making a mistake? Will it work or not? Can you tell me?
It will work because it is in same class.
Yes, correct. Okay. Similarly, if you want, like till now, what we have seen, either we can say a equal to 5, or maybe the user will tell what will be the value of a for the different executions of the program. Means you can take input from the user, or you can directly put the value inside your program. This is called direct assignment, or maybe the user will assign the value. So what we are doing is, we are going to call the constructor. Means automatically this constructor will get called whenever we create the object, and that time if we pass some values, they will get stored in my name and my ID, and this my name and my ID we are going to store inside ID and name respectively, right? So these are called as parameterized constructors. Means these constructors have parameters, so they're called parameterized constructors. And this constructor does not have any parameter, so you can either call it non-parameterized or default constructor. Okay, this is the constructor which usually gets called when there are no parameterized constructors. The default constructor, this type of constructor, usually gets called. Okay, now as I was saying, you can have, you cannot have okay, 1 minute, let me show you. Okay, so though the definition of these constructors is different, but these both are the default constructors. These both are non-parameterized. So only one you can have in your program. You cannot have both. Okay, so I'll comment this. But on the other hand, your parameterized constructors can be many types. Okay, means here there are two parameters, but here there is one parameter. This is allowed because there is change in the number of parameters. Okay, suppose you have another thing over here. but it is an integer z. Now see here what is happening. Here there are two parameters, here also two parameters. Here there is my name, but here there's my ID and there's some other parameter. That does not matter, okay? It always checks for the data type. Here there is string, here there is string. Here there is int, here there is int. So it gets confused, there is ambiguity. So here you cannot have both of them. Only one you can have, any one, okay? But suppose this int z was not there, only string my name was there, then it is okay. Because here there is string, but here there is string and integer. So it compares with what all the things? It compares the number of parameters. It compares the sequence. That means first string and then int. And here you can give first int ID and then string. Okay. So it will first check for number of parameters, 2 and 2. Same. But here there is string and then integer. Here there is integer, then string. So it is different. Okay. But if you have string and then an integer, as I showed you already, it will give you an error because string integer is clashing. Okay, then it will also check for mm, the number, the type, and okay, here there is no concept. Okay, 1 minute. And you can also have the variable length arguments here, right? We have seen this. So suppose you're going to pass, suppose you're calling this particular constructor, my main employee. Okay, now answer my question. If you're calling this my main employee constructor, and while calling this constructor, you're passing, suppose 5 values. You're passing the values like 5, comma 6. No, you're passing a string, and then you're passing 2, comma 6, comma 7. Okay, ignore these red lines. For now, tell me, for this particular constructor, this one, if you're passing these particular parameters, then which parameter here will get which value? Can you tell me? You're passing so many values. Which parameter will get which value? Can you just tell me?
I-
ID will get 5 and string name my name will good.
Okay, what about 2, 6, 7? These three parameters, what about that?
Actually, it will show error
No, it will not show error.
because number of arguments are not matching, means they are not equal.
But this is not your normal parameter, right?
Yes,
Here,
yes.
there are three
Array.
dots.
This is
What
a
does this mean if there are three dots? This is variable length.
Array.
Oh, variable
Okay, it is
length.
variable length parameter. Yes, exactly. Variable length array, or you can say variable length parameter. So you can specify any number, 2, 6, 7, 7, 8, how many ever you can specify. These red lines, why they are showing currently? Because I've written something over here. This should not be over here. This should be in comments. Okay, that is why those lines are showing. But I wanted to show you these values and the parameters together, so I'm writing this here. Okay, that is why these red lines. Ignore that for now. So 5 will get stored in ID, good will get stored in name, my name, and this 26778 will get stored in ARGS array. So if I want to print ARGS of 0, means if I want to print let this ARGS of 0. So what will this return me? ARGS of 0. What will be the value stored in this position of the array?
2,
2.
Yes, very good. If I say ARGS of 4, what will be the value in this position?
8.
8.
8.
Correct. Okay. So this is how it will, you can access the values from the array. So suppose I write something like this. Instead of this 7, I write some string over here. Now, can you tell me what will happen? Will it work or
Error.
not?
This will give error.
Why it will give error?
Because variable integer type.
Exactly. Okay. You can only store integers. So this time you'll get an error. Okay. Now, if you don't pass anything over here. Okay, I'm passing 2, 6, 7, 8. Now which parameter will get which value? Can you guess and tell me?
Again error,
Why error?
because
Because
the second is string my name, right? And 6 is not a string.
Okay, correct. Okay, so this 6 will try to get stored in my name, but my name is string. So there you'll get an error. Now, now can you tell me, will there be error or will there be no error?
error,
Why?
because three parameters are not there.
Yes. So at least 3. Okay, so you need minimum 3. After 3, you can have 4, 5, 6, any number, but minimum 3, because otherwise this array will be empty. Okay, so these were some cases. Now, I'm removing that parameter, third one. Okay, there are 2 parameters only. Now, uh, okay, so these are 2 constructors which are of the same type, parameterized. So it is constructor overloading. You're overloading the same constructor with different behaviors depending on the parameters. Okay, if it gets string and integer, it will execute this particular constructor. If it gets integer string, it will execute this particular definition of the constructor. So you're overloading the same constructor, overloading. Then you have some methods: get name, set id, and get id. And then from another class, you're going to create an object. Okay, you're going to create an object, Nitesh and Nitesh1. Okay, let us create Nitesh only first. So you're going to pass one parameter. I think there are two parameters, Nitesh surname and 12. So there are 2 parameters that you're passing, and which order? String and integer. So can you tell me which out of these 2 will get selected?
First one.
First one.
Okay, because you're passing string and then integer. Okay, first one will get selected. So it will match, okay, depending on number of arguments, order of arguments, and all that, type of arguments. Okay, so next one, if you're passing a single string, and for now it is highlighting some error. So let us see why. Because we do not have a constructor which takes a single parameter, right? We are passing a single string over here, but it is not finding a match. It is not finding the exact match. It has 2 parameter constructor, here also 2 parameter, and here it has no parameter constructor, 0 parameters. But 1 parameter is missing. 1 parameter constructor is missing. So it is giving you an error. Okay. Suppose I remove this from here. This is how you pass parameters to your constructor. Okay, like this. If I remove the parameters from here, then it will select this particular one, because here there are no parameters. Okay, so it will select accordingly. Then, so now you're passing, suppose only if this object is with me, Nitesh, then you're passing string and integer. So as you told me, string and integer, this will get selected. So now ID will become equal to Nitesh, and name will become equal to my name, that is Nitesh, and ID will become equal to 12, which you have passed. Okay, so here you have Nitesh and 12, so that will get stored in ID and name. Now if you try to print the value of ID and name, will you get the parameters that you have passed? Will you get Nitesh and 12 if you try to print the value of ID and name? Can you tell me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you will get it. Okay, so you can try that at home. Okay. Mm. Now, just a minute. Okay, so same thing. You're passing two parameters, string and integer, and it is not finding the match. Okay, so here also, if I write string and integer, here also you're passing two parameters, that is string and integer, and here you're finding a constructor which has three parameters at least. So again, it is showing error over here. So is this much clear to you, how the constructors you can pass the parameters? Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any doubts still here you want to ask me? You can ask now before we start the next topic. Okay, and another thing, uh, suppose the parameter that you mention over here, for example, string n, where is that called? Okay, suppose the parameter name is string name, okay, and here the parameter name is name, and you're going to store it inside the private data of the class, which is name. Here also the private data member of the class is name, and the parameter that you have passed, its name is also name. So you're going to store this name inside the name which is of the class. Okay, the class ka name, inside that you're going to store the parameter which is also name. So will there be any error over here? What do you think? Because the here also name and here also name. Will the compiler understand, or will there be error? What is your thought about this? Any idea? Okay, so it will get confused because same variable, or you can say same name for both the entities, left hand side also, right hand side also. So to avoid this error, I'm audible, right? Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so to resolve this ambiguity, confusion, to resolve this, we usually write, we are saying that the left hand side is the name which is of the class. Class ka data member is name, that name, this is the private data member of the class. So to differentiate between this, we write this dot name. Okay, so the name of the class is nothing but, you can say that it is the object to which we are referring. Here, this object that we have created, Nitesh. Okay, so for now, I'll pass only the string. Okay, so this object is the Nitesh. That object will have ID and name, right? Means what we are doing, the class is defined. We can create multiple objects of the same class. So the object number one will also have the ID and name. The object number two will also have its own ID and name. The object number three also will have its own ID and name. Am I right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So to differentiate between the member of the object and the parameter, that time we use this. Okay, so if the parameter and the object we want to differentiate, this indicates that we are referring to the name of the object. Okay, though we say that name and ID is defined in the class, it is actually of the object, because class is just the blueprint which is applied to the object. So ID and name is actually the part of the object. So to differentiate that, this name is of the object, we write this dot name. Okay, so it is used to reference the particular object which we are considering. Okay, so for that we use this. Is the idea clear? Why we are using this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is another keyword in Java. Out of the total 50 keywords, you write this dot name. Okay, so this is another thing that you have to keep in mind. Even if here the parameter name is n instead of name, and here it is n. Now, is this necessary or is it optional? Can you tell me?
Optional.
Exactly, it is optional because there'll be no ambiguity over here. Even if you use this, sorry, even if you use this, you won't have any problem. It will run properly, the program will run, but it is simply not necessary. Okay, here also if you write this, it is indicating that it is a part of the object which you are considering. Okay, but it is optional. Just like how if the keyword, if the variable is static, then object for the, if the variable is static, then it is optional to create an object to access the static variable, right? If it is static, object creation is optional to access it. Similarly, if the names are different, it is optional to use this. Okay, any doubts till here? You can ask me. Any doubts? Yes, no?
No.
Okay, so now you tell me, do you want to go for the next concept or do you want me to explain the assignment questions? Whatever you say, we can do it.
Assignment questions.
Okay, we'll go for the assignment questions. So this is it for today related to object oriented programming. Okay.